ask Bryan to come next and talk about his chapter on the NDP. Okay, Bryan, thanks.
I'm obviously wearing orange to express my enduring fidelity with the New Democratic Party.
Just why it says Netherlands.
Yeah, well, the Dutch are playing at 2:45, so that's why. A couple of things are going on today, which are salient, pertinent to any discussion of social democracy, and the New Democratic Party obviously being the Canadian variant of that. And as we all know, there are two parliamentary elections happening in Europe, one in France and one in Greece, where it's really interesting in terms of how social democracy, what exactly is going on there, we're not sure yet, but clearly we have two political parties of the social democratic left, which are taking very different approaches from a public policy point of view, from a political point of view, about how they intend to govern. And just before I came in here, about not quite an hour ago, I was looking at The Guardian, and people were tweeting from Greece, and at that point, and about now, if anybody can check in, if you have the technological capability, the official returns should be coming in any moment now. But the exit polls were showing at that point, at 55 minutes ago, that the difference between the Conservatives and the coalition of the radical left, or in Greek, Syriza, was no more than 0.5, depending which exit poll. It was either Syriza up 0.5 or the Conservatives up 0.5. And then another tweet came in that there had been a surge of younger voters 1 hour before the polls shut down, indicating that voters between the ages of 25 and 40 were very much more likely to be voting for the coalition of the radical left. And what implication that may have in the outcome, we don't know. What's interesting about the Greek election and pertinent for social democracy is that one of the largest, electorally most successful social democratic parties in Europe, PASOK, the Pan-Hellenic Socialist Movement, a party, win or lose, in parliamentary elections from the late 1970s forward, would win 40% or more, between 40 and 48. The exit polls are showing them coming in at no more than 12, and maybe bottoming out at 10, meaning they are destroyed as an electoral machine movement, whatever you will. Then on the other hand, in France, and again, as we know, PASOK has been a proponent of austerity. Whereas in France, the socialists have been campaigning, and notwithstanding their record in government a decade or more ago, they have been campaigning on an anti-austerity platform and have talked about making greater equality core to their political program. And it would appear that the socialists may in fact win a majority entirely on their own and will not have need to count on any political formation to their left. So so we have two very interesting phenomena there. And more generally in Europe, different social democratic parties are taking very different approaches and recalibrating. Some, like the Spanish and Portuguese, tend to be pro-austerity, yet in Northern Europe, the German Social Democratic Party is rethinking that entire agenda, notwithstanding the Gerhard Schroeder years. And in Denmark, a Social Democratic-led coalition supported, a red-green coalition supported by political parties to its left, directly or indirectly, taking a completely, from the day they took office nearly a year ago, a completely anti-austerity agenda, a reflationary agenda. And no doubt all of this is a function of peculiarities within each nation. And then, we have to come back and think, this is a current reality, but we've gone through 25, 30 years where social democracy everywhere has gone through a profound rethinking. And the social democracy I grew up with, many people here, given the demographics of some of us, the party in the 1970s was a party committed to redistribution, to a role, not a commanding role, but a significant role for public ownership. Witness the Blakely government in Saskatchewan and the employment of crown corporations as an economic and social development tool. in that province. And people like Polanyi and Habermas, understood the need to embed, and I think this is the heart of the old social democratic agenda, the need to embed markets within political institutions as a means of ensuring a balance between the market, the state, and a broader form of inclusive democracy. And Habermas, I guess to his credit, as neoliberalism was creeping in 25 years ago, he became very skeptical of whether or not social democracy was actually capable of playing that role any longer. And I think in that sense, there are 3 points about social democracy generally, including the NDP, and its performance at the provincial level. I'll spare you all the detail, but read the book, read the chapter, my chapter in the NDP, and it's a collection documenting not just the New Democratic Party's relationship to labor, but in addition to what it has done, as Stephanie commented on, in power at the provincial level. And we have a lot of experience of the NDP in power through the 1990s and indeed today, which suggests that program of redistribution, of even modest public ownership, is gone, it's abandoned. It's no longer part of the agenda. What distinguishes the NDP in government from, let's say, even the McGuinty government can be marginal. But that doesn't mean it's unimportant, particularly in the Canadian context. As Stephanie said, I would never advocate abandoning electoralism. I tend to vote, I'll admit, not always, but I tend to vote for the NDP. But it is, I think, a potential, maybe the only real space in which we can bring issues of public ownership and redistribution back into the political agenda in a significant way beyond, meetings and groups of people, like-minded people like we have here. And I think that this divide opening up within social democracy that we can be, which is captured by the French and the Greeks, literally today, may be beginning to happen in Canada within the NDP. We all may know Aaron Weir, young economist, very sharp guy, an old-fashioned redistribution social democrat, will soon be announcing he will be seeking leadership of the Saskatchewan NDP. And I think at one level that's potentially very encouraging. Again, it's bringing into the debate issues of the role of public ownership, making equality at the center, greater equality at the center, and some form of redistribution. And again, but he's one individual, and 30 years of demobilization, 30 years of ideological shift mean that there's not much of a core left, even within social democracy, perhaps for that kind of movement. But just to kind of wrap it all up very quickly, I think there are three phenomena, three dimensions that we can hold on to and apply to understanding the New Democratic Party and its evolution to where it's at today, but would apply to the SPD in Germany or indeed the British Labour Party. And the three of them are, first of all, the transition to a new social democracy was accompanied by an enduring feature of even the old social democracy, which is an unacknowledged economism running through the ideology of the party, at the core of the party. And consequently, the role of politics within that unacknowledged economism morphed, and the project became not one about regulation and balancing, but rather adjustment. And that word modernization keeps on coming up. And modernization to what? Modernization meaning adaptation to the new realities of not the old capitalism, but of neoliberal capitalism. As the economic base shifted and morphed, social democracy played the role, and that was particularly evident in Europe, of modernizing, reforming, adapting the institutional framework, not to challenge that, but to accommodate it. The second point again, you know, which is a key point, and Stephanie mentioned it, the complete 100% focusing of all political effort and organization around electoralism. It's not around class mobilization, it's not a transformative or an emancipatory project. It is simply about building a winning electoral coalition by whatever means you need to win that coalition, without regard to any particular kind of project, alternative project being part of that movement. And the third and final point being, social democracy has morphed, particularly in the past 25 years, into a political movement without a theory. Well, I should back up. It does have a theory, an implicit assumption and acceptance of neoclassical economics, of the role of the market, and a rejection, an explicit rejection of any alternative to that. And we've, you know, within our own context, we've seen people like Ed Broadbent talk about the need to accept the role of the market, that there really is, you know, again, no alternative to anything but. And so at the end of it all, we have a social democracy here, there, and everywhere, which is not an alternative to neoliberal capitalism, to restructuring, but in fact has played a role because it is in fact embedded and situated, insinuated into the very fiber, the very heart of the neoliberal project. It has long given up, and I mean long, and it would apply to the old social democracy, any emancipatory project, and in fact move toward a fundamentally declassed and therefore non-ideological, even post-ideological politics. Now, I have to go back, my really final comment, being looking at, there is something changing in the world of social democracy. I don't know exactly what, but clearly there is a debate occurring. What's very interesting, even in terms of the British Labour Party, Ed Miliband, and whatever you think about Ed Miliband, I don't think much of him anyway. The appointment of John Curtis, who arguably is on the left, one of the few remaining left Labour MPs, and he appointed Curtis to lead a policy review. And Curtis made it very clear that, look, you know, I'm not going to want to reinvent new Labour. I want something, I'm going to come forward and propose a very different kind of agenda for the British Labour Party, which will not be anything approaching what Blair and Kinnock had constructed. Now, again, where that goes ultimately, who knows? But the fact that they are having a debate, we don't have that debate quite yet in such a intellectual fashion in the NDP, but clearly within social democracy, a debate is beginning to emerge. And I think the fact that there's a debate is indeed encouraging. So, thank you very much.